Hey everybody, I'm MS Farzan, and welcome back to this video series on how to make a 2D multiplayer tabletop card game using Unity and Mirror. In the previous episode, we set up our basic UI architecture for the game, and we're going to continue by creating our cards in this video. So what I'm going to do, as you guessed it, is create an empty game object. And here in this game object, I'm just going to call it card1. I'm going to add a component, which will be an image. And as we'll see, it's not nested to the main canvas, so I can't see that image. I'm going to do that. So now we see this little card here. And I need a source image for this card, or if I didn't want to do that, I could just create something that looks more like a card. This kind of looks like just a square token. So let's say I didn't want to do that and you don't want to do it for your game, or you don't have any art for it. You're welcome to use mine, for example, that I'll include with the template project. But if you don't have any art, you could just change the sizing of this using the transform component. Here you see it's just width 100 by 100 height pixels. I'm going to change this to 120 by 177. That's kind of like a card shaped image, which you could totally use for this project and it would all work the same way. And you could change the color of it if you wanted like a I don't know, like a yellow card to go along with this really glamorous looking well, a very, very ugly background that we have here. I mean, whatever you wanted to do, you could totally do that. We're actually not going to do that. We're going to keep it just a white color, and we need a source image for this, and Unity will look for things in my project. I don't really have anything set up here, so what I'm going to do is start working with this project tab down here. As we can see, under the assets folder, I just have a scenes folder which has my sample scene, what we've been working in here. If you haven't worked with scenes before, it's a basic way of collecting all the information for your game within a specific scenario. Like if you have one level of a platformer, that could be a scene, or in our particular game, you could have a welcome screen, which is one scene, or like a start menu. You could have an options menu, that's another scene. You could have the actual game being a scene. You could have the game over screen being another scene. We're going to be all working everything in our sample scene. I'm going to right click on the assets folder and say create folder. And we can create, I'll create another confusingly named folder called assets. You could call it images, or I don't know, sprites or something like that. And you see there's nothing in this screen, in this folder. I could access this from the file system, or I could just, I've put the 4 sprites that we're going to be using for this tutorial on my desktop. I'm just going to grab them all, open up that screen again, and just drag them to this assets folder, and it'll helpfully just copy them for me. If I click on one of them and then click on the arrow next to them, I see exactly what the sprite is. These are just card backs and card fronts from my Entromancy Hacker Battles card game. So now, when I go back to this card1, I could drag, for example, this you'll use this cyan ping 3x is the name of the asset. I could just drag it to the source image field here in this component. So I clicked on the card1 and then I just drag it to that component, or I can click this little button and it will Unity will search through my assets folder and show me the different available sprites, and I could choose one of them here. It's all the same. So now I have this sprite, and it's demonstrated here. We don't really need to mess with it otherwise. We could, for example, drag it and make it bigger and all weird, which we're not going to do, or we could mess with that here in the width and height here. We don't need to do any of that. We've already set it up the way we want it to. And when we click play, we see that it's here on my screen. Okay, I can't drag it or do anything. The draw cards button doesn't do anything. So I can't really do anything with this, but it appears in my scene. So that's cool. Let's create another one of these. We can just duplicate it and call this card 2. And I'll just for funsies, I'll put it right under the card 1 in my hierarchy. And for card 2, just move it to the side so I can see it. Let's say we want to use the magenta version of my card named Ping. And now we have, when I click play, I have both of these on my screen. Cool. Those are my cards. Now, we need to create another folder here. Well, we'll create a couple of different folders at some point, but right now we'll just create one that's called Prefabs. A prefab is a version of your game object that serves as almost like a template for all of your other game objects. If you could imagine that I have hundreds of cards, I don't necessarily want to make the same card over and over again every time. In fact, I might just want a template of a card that has all of my code, all of my images, or whatever I need to do with that thing, all attached to that thing, and then I can just make duplicates that derive from that initial prefab at any given point in time. We're going to do that with all of our, well, almost all of our game objects here. And the way to do that, to create a prefab, is to drag the game object from the hierarchy to your assets folder here. So I'm going to drag my background here. I'm going to drag my player area, my enemy area, my drop zone, my card 1, my card 2, and my button. You can create prefab variants. You can do all kinds of stuff with prefabs. We're just going to be working with the basic level of understanding prefabs in our tutorial, but there's a lot here for you to work with. For example, if I wanted to make it, if I had a bunch of card 1s on the screen and I wanted to make a change to all of them, I could do that here in the inspector after clicking on the card 1 prefab, and it would populate. I could make it populate to all of the different versions of that prefab on the screen or in my game scene. Or alternatively, I could make a change to one of the game objects in my scene and say, I just want that to happen to this very specific special game object, or I want that to reflect across the prefab itself. I don't think we'll really have a use for doing any of that in our series, but it's just good to know that that's available. Great. So we've created our cards. In our next video, we'll look at how to make them interactive. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do like it and subscribe to my channel for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, and I'd love for you to check out my books and games. Please head to the link that I provided in the description for this video to check them out. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.